Civilization as a video game franchise has been about you charting your own journey through history. So you get to start from the very beginning, 4000 BC, just with a simple outpost, a settlement. Bit by bit, turn by turn, you start building up your empire, engaging with your neighbors nearby, either diplomatically or through military means. And by the end of it, you've taken a journey all the way up through the present times. You've launched things into space. And you have an amazing civilization that can stand the test of time. So Firaxis has had a 33-33-33 rule that we have maintained for each of the new installments, so that they have 33% very new and different, 33% where we've refined and improved the formula, and then 33% staying to the tried and true formula that we've established through all the other 6 installments in the series. So we did introduce some big changes. For Civilization VII, the Ages system is the biggest one, where we break the game up into chapters. You don't stick with a civilization throughout the entire course of the game. As you move through the ages, you can either take a historical path. So if you are moving into a Western European civ, you might start as Rome. There are a lot of pathways that make a ton of sense like that. You can also make choices that are entirely inspired by what you want to set up for your own gameplay. And with 3 ages, so 3 civilization picks, plus a leader pick, the number of combinations you can try out is wildly higher than it has been in any previous title. So players are going to have a ton of fun experimenting with all those different choices.
We decided that the end of a Civ game feels too much like a click fest. You're just going next turn, you're just trying to get to the end. You're still doing those same simple decisions at the beginning, and then they just multiply as you go through the game until it's just, I have to make a granary, I have to do this again, I have to set up these things, and X, Y, and Z. So I think at the very beginning, one of the things we really looked back and decided was, we want to be able to have these soft resets, and Ages allowed us to do that. At the beginning of each age, we toss the systems that are no longer valid for that age, introduce new systems that are valid for that age, so everything is topical to the age you're in. And then when you go to the next stage, we take away some of that complexity and keep our decision space interesting. In the Antiquity age, you only have pantheons. And you get into the Exploration age, and then you have full-blown religions. Those things are not then applied in the modern age. So we really want each age to feel distinct and unique to what you're playing. The victories that you go for at the end of the game, the goals and legacy paths that you have in each age in the approach are applicable to that age. We also saw that a lot of times people will quit the game after they've gotten through those early ages. One of the things we saw bubble up to the surface is, well, this is my favorite time to play. This is when I get to explore. I find new characters, I find new things to do. We decided that every age needs an exploration mechanic. Every time you come into a new age, there's new independent powers to discover, there's new lands to discover, there's new people to meet. It's a big change. It's going to change the way that players play the game.
Simplement, citoyen Lafayette.
So with Civilization VII, the leaders are no longer just political leaders of the nation.
Leaders were individuals with their own identities and families and concerns, oftentimes speaking a very different language from the people over whom they ruled, practicing different religions, and certainly from a different class.
The way I like to think about it is that the leaders are the kind of philosophy or ideology of rule.
If you're playing as Tecumseh, you're playing diplomatically. You're trying to create coalitions and alliances. If you're playing as Isabella, you're looking towards expansion, you're looking beyond.
The kind of driver to the car, and the civs are the car.
So I love some of the leaders that we have, like Confucius, who's just amazing at setting up a whole philosophical system for how government should be established. We also have Machiavelli, and with a brand new diplomacy system, an influence currency that you can spend to get great bonuses in terms of how you're manipulating other players in the game. Having a leader like Machiavelli around is fantastic.
I typically still play Hatshepsut Egypt because I love the environment set that was built for that. Narratively in my head, playing historically, settled by navigable rivers, that's going to boost your production. If I'm playing a wonder building game, that's just where I go, because pyramids are one of the first things out of the gate.
I like Zongchak because I do not play peacefully, but I love having a commander out on the field, racking up experience points and oftentimes going down in a blaze of glory.
Narrative events in Civilization VII is a really cool new system. We've always talked about Civilization as a story that the players have in their own head. They're always narrating something and going through a pathway. We don't want to change that. The game still allows you to tell the story you want, but there's all kinds of little things going on in the world that we can assist with. There's things out in the wild, like discoveries. They're the equivalent of what goody huts used to be. You might find an old fighting pit, an abandoned caravan, bandits, and you have to make decisions on what you do or not do with these things. And they can have different levels of rewards based on what you do. But the cooler part, I think, is all of the story bits that are written for the leaders and the civilizations in the game.
Moments of text, moments of decision where something has happened. This may be something rather general. You've made these sorts of quarters and have these kinds of units. This may be something extremely specific. You're playing as this leader and this particular thing has happened that you may see once after a few months of playing the game. You may never see. But these were times that we could try to bring this world to life. What does it mean that you have made these particular choices in a strategy game?
Civilization at its core is a fairly narrative game. So integrating a narrative system into Civilization was not a huge leap. It was really a matter of thinking about the bones of the gameplay. So what the player was doing at any what time, what the context of that was. So you've built this bathhouse, or you've founded a new settlement, or you've gone to war. What do the people in your empire think about that? How are they being affected by the things that are going on? These are the kinds of questions that are not always on the map because you can't see your full population on the map. But the narrative system is giving a voice to this. That's what excites me most about the system, is that it really brings your civilization to life in a way that hasn't been possible before. We can really focus on, okay, what made this civ thrive? Who lived in this civ? What its strengths were, what its weaknesses were, but also specific events that maybe were a turning point or that were the beginning of a larger change. We can also build narrative events across ages. If you've encountered something in antiquity and you experience something similar in exploration, does another narrative event come up that remembers? Or do you uncover something in modern that might be a callback to something you did 2 ages ago? You don't just leave behind one era of history and move on to the next. You're actually building throughout the ages, and you see it with your city, and you see it with your gameplay, and you also see it with the narrative system.
So we knew that with that type of sort of foundational change, we had to be a little bit more cautious in maybe what the types of changes we would make in other systems. So we do have 33%. This refinements, fine-tuning, and so with the builder units no longer being there and you being able to directly control the growth and expansion of your cities without having to go through the builder unit, it saves 2 or 3 steps that we used to have in the previous titles. The other thing we have done is we've split our settlements into 2 types. Cities like we've always had, but we also have towns. And towns no longer have a build queue that has to be managed with production choices every single turn. You can focus a town to produce a certain types of yields, and then it's pretty much automated and it will sort of run itself. Resources are no longer obtained from enemy empires through diplomatic deals. Your traders go out and they establish trade routes that bring those resources from those foreign cities or settlements back into your empire. You can build up quite an inventory of different trade goods, even if it's the same type. All their bonuses stack, and so you can become the person who hoards copies of iron from around the world, and your knights and swordsmen are stronger than any of the other empires around the world. It has reduced a lot of the micromanagement, but it's brought brand new gameplay to the table as well. So there are a lot of little systemic refinements that we've gone through to thoughtfully look at where the player is investing their time and to make that a little bit more streamlined.
There is only so much we can ask of our fans to adapt new gameplay before it stops feeling like Civ, because it's got to still feel like Civ. I'm going Stone Age to Space Age. I'm changing civilizations. I'm having my culture adapt to other cultures as I'm going through the game. But it's still got to feel like I'm making that kind of progress, like I'm building something. I've got legacy, I've got history with my people.
And so you'll find things like the combat system or the way the map's set up and how you explore it. Those are very familiar to previous players of our games.
I think for me, what makes Civ is that feeling of getting a peek into another time, another place, and how you interact with the different elements of a civilization, the science, culture, your neighbors, warfare, whether or not you prioritize the commanders and leaders and philosophers and thinkers, or the canals and rivers and irrigation fields.
I think it's very important to have historians working on this kind of game, not only because there is a lot of history in the game, but also because the game requires a balance between history and fiction.
The question of representation, how we present different places, different time periods, different dynasties, these kinds of things, this is always something we put a lot of thought into. History may look really different on either side of a border. So walking that line and trying to tell stories that are both true but also fun is what we try to do here. With the Shawnee Collaboration, it was really important for us to allow the Shawnee an active voice in what we were doing here. With any indigenous group, there is a problem where so often their representation comes at the hands of other people. So allowing the Shawnee tribe to weigh in, to give feedback, to work with the designers, to co-create a historical moment, an image, the character of Tecumseh was really rewarding, interesting, and I hope that it was also rewarding for the Shawnee.
We have a lot of very unique civilizations in Civilization VII, and for each age, we have, I'd say, best examples of those as well. So you have, for instance, Rome in the Antiquity Age, where they're all about a very, very powerful capital city. In the Exploration Age, I love to go with the Spanish. They are amazing with their bonuses in terms of establishing resources and treasures that you're pulling in from the distant lands.
My personal favorite Civ is Siam, and being able to bring historical figures in their unique units into the game and being able to tell a little fraction of a story of Dara Rasmi, for instance, that was a real thrill. There just is so much to say that capturing Persia or Greece or the Khmer in a list of attributes of some architecture, a unit, you're only capturing a very small fragment of the possibilities inherent in that Civ. Do we make a militarist Persia? Do we make a trade-focused Persia? Do we make an infrastructure-focused Persia? Each one of these are historical possibilities. But some of those may make a more playable, more fun experience in the game.
Taken from history, inspired by history, built upon history, but presented as a civilization Civ.
We have to struggle with that balance in the decision between realism to history or gameplay fun. The mantra handed down from Sid Meier throughout the years has always been that gameplay has to win every time. Probably one of the best examples in our new exploration age, we came up with our treasure fleet mechanic. You actually have to do what all the European powers had to do, finding out what's on the other side of the world and establishing outposts there to collect those resources. But you've got to get that across the ocean back home safely. And what's even more fun, the other powers in the game can capture that unit and then they can take it home and score it for themselves. So this makes great gameplay. Is it realistic? No, that's a little bit of a stretch. But the gameplay involved is so fascinating that we're happy to make that trade-off.
What goes into a successful Civ game is how it feels. If you feel cool and important as a player, if you feel like you're on the right track and you don't feel pressure, you have the ability to tell your own story at your own pace.
Some people like to be conquerors and some people like to be builders. And all those great cultural achievements and wonders that have been built throughout history are available for you to pursue. That all just becomes part of the long journey that you have building up your empire. And that Civ moment to moment, one more turn gameplay, we've made sure that we've got plenty of that still baked in there. And I think our fans are really, once they try it out, gonna love that. Sid Meier's Civilization VII is coming to PC, Mac, and consoles. We can't wait for fans to get their hands on the title on February 11th, 2025.